So we were discussing land and all of its characteristics in the last chapter. Now you've been reading about real estate and real property. And this is where it gets good. This is where it gets real, right? The reality of real estate. Real estate is land plus the permanent human-made improvements. So we're adding a fence, sewer lines, a structure, such as a building or a house, or maybe even fencing. Personal property, let's discuss what that is. Personal property is all of your personal belongings, money, bank accounts, clothing, any freestanding furniture. Okay, that's all of your personal property. Another really good word that you might see used for personal property is chattel. And I've got it italicized for you right here, this chattel. I always remember that word as children and cattle. Those belong to you. Those are not part of the property. Mobile homes is a good example. A mobile home is a home that is built off of the property, and it literally does sit on wheels. Now, if you've ever been to a mobile home park, you will see that most of them, though, look permanent, right? They've got a nice skirting around the outside, maybe steps that lead up to it. Some people are maybe even able to build a deck up to it. But make no mistake, that is not real property. It is still on wheels, just like a camper. So it is personal property. So a mobile home, including a camper, is not real estate. It is personal property. The land is real estate, but the mobile home is actually personal property. Now, here's where we get a little twist to our real estate story, and we now talk about a fixture. And I absolutely think that a fixture will be a great candidate for a test question for you in maybe several different ways. A fixture starts as personal property, and it becomes so attached to the land, and its intention is to stay with the land, that it's no longer personal property, it's a fixture, and it remains with the property when it transfers to a new owner. Okay, so a fixture is personal property so attached to the land that it becomes real estate. So great examples of fixtures is cabinets, heating and cooling systems, your furnace, air conditioner, hot water heater. Those things sitting at Lowe's are personal property. But when they're brought into the home and they're so permanently attached with the intention of creating a room like a kitchen or providing heating and cooling to the property, and they're now plumbed, and again, they're permanently attached, they are now a fixture. They remain with the property. Okay. Now, I will just say for clarification for your career as well, the test of a fixture is not just that it's screwed into the wall. The other test is the intention of it staying, what is agreed to by both parties, and what is the relationship between the property and that item. Okay, and the relationship has got to be that it was there for the purpose of creating an enhancement to that structure, or creating a space that would be permanent. Okay, so it's not how it was attached, but it's the intention. So for example, I've got very heavy artwork that has needed to be screwed into the wall and anchored so that it doesn't fall and hurt anyone. Is that a fixture now? No, because just screwing it into the wall is not what determines it being a fixture. It was the intention, and the intention is not an improvement to the property. The intention is just for me to enjoy my artwork. So that still remains personal property. Okay, wall-to-wall carpet is another great one. All of your fixtures, outlets, Curtain rods, but not the curtain. Blinds are another good one. Those are permanently attached with the intention of being part of the property. Now, here's a couple things I want you to keep in mind is if it's freestanding, it doesn't stay. So a really good example of a test question that I would think would be appropriate is if you've got a piece of personal property, like a dining room hutch that fits perfectly into a little alcove or recessed area in a dining room, just fits there perfectly. Does it stay or does it go? Well, if it's not permanently attached, it goes. It's personal property. It doesn't remain. Now, for your career, I want to throw this in there. If there's any time that you've got a question, whether something stays or it goes, ask. And then get it in writing so that everyone's clear on whether it stays or goes. On the flip side, if you've got a seller that's got something that is a fixture, but they want to take with them. Some examples I've had in my career are a dining room chandelier that someone had moved from an old farmhouse that they grew up in, or a rose bush that kids gave to them on their very first Mother's Day, and they want to keep those items. Those are fixtures and should stay with the property. So if your seller wants to keep it, you need to have a disclosure and an agreement between the buyer and the seller that that's not going to remain with the property. Otherwise, if it's missing closing time, you're going to have buyers that are really confused and upset. And that's really my point of, if there's anything that you're not sure about, a really common one is a free floating stand that's a linen tower in a bathroom. Does it stay or does it go? Well, if it's not attached and built in, and one clue that I usually look for is what's going on with the baseboard. Is the baseboard cut so that it fits in there perfectly, or is the baseboard go behind it, indicating that it's probably freestanding? That's one tip I look for. When in doubt, again, just get it in writing, ask, clarify, and then make sure that you're doing what I call plan ahead to get ahead. Ask those questions so that your buyers aren't disappointed when it's gone later, the day before closing, and you're trying to figure out a solution to make everyone happy. So ask really good questions. Couple other good maybe vocabulary for you here is severance and annexation. If everything starts as real property, if everything starts as personal property, my example is going to be lumber sitting in your driveway. Just bought it from Lowe's, 2x4s just sitting there. That's personal property. When you attach it to the house though and build a deck, is called annexation. So you're turning personal property into real property. That's the verb for it, is annexation. But now over time, you decide we don't want 2x4 lumber as a deck. We want to upgrade to something fantastic, like maybe Trek decking. Something that's composite, less maintenance. So you tear that lumber off of the house. That's called severance. You're severing it from the property. Now it becomes personal property again. And the new deck materials sitting in the driveway are personal property. And again, once you put that deck back on, now we're using the verb of annexation and it becomes real property or a fixture. On the next page here at the top, let's talk about plants. There's really two categories. There's perennial and there's annual. A perennial regrows itself every year, sometimes whether you want it to or not. But a perennial regrows itself every year, where an annual you gotta plant. So a perennial is going to be shrubs, grass, trees, hostas, rose bushes, Anything that regrows itself every year is a perennial. That is a fixture and remains with the property. Annuals that you've got to replant, your peonies, no, petunias, anything that you've got to replant every year. Crops is going to be the big one, I think, for the exam. That is personal property. So let me set you up with a couple of examples for test questions. Number one, which of the following is personal property? Sidewalks, trees, shrubs, or crops? Which of the following is personal property? Trees, shrubs, sidewalks, or crops? Now that one, because we just reviewed it, is probably pretty obvious to you. Crops is personal property. I just gave you that answer. However, my worry is when you go to take the exam, a little bit of anxiety sets in, right? And I don't want you to go to Sesame Street brain. Sesame Street brain is that classic thing that we learned from Big Bird that says, and his friends, one of these things is not like the other. One of these things just isn't the same. And in a quick read of trees, crops, bushes, and sidewalks, it's really easy to pick sidewalks because that one is so different. But you would be wrong, because as we know, the correct answer is crops. That's personal property. Okay. Another one that I have seen talks about a heating system, a cast iron bench, and an antique rose bush. And I'm sorry, I forget what maybe a fourth option would be. I think a lot of people get confused over the adjectives that are going with the noun there. HVAC is obviously real property because it's permanently attached. We've talked about that one. Cast iron bench, that's a bench that just happens to be made out of cast iron. An antique rose bush is a rose bush. The type is antique. And again, don't let those adjectives mess you up. Go back to the noun, and that bench is personal property. It's the antique rose bush and the HVAC that are real property. Okay. Next up is a trade fixture. And I cannot stress this enough, that a trade fixture is for the course of doing business. It has nothing to do with residential property. It's for the course of doing business. Now, why did they name it trade fixture? I don't know. I didn't come up with these names. I'm sorry. I would have named it something different, because I realize it's counterintuitive. I just taught you, you just learned by reading that a fixture was permanent. And now I'm telling you a trade fixture, has the word fixture in it, is personal property for the course of doing business. Trade fixtures are a special category. And by the way, a great candidate for a test question. I'd actually be disappointed if you didn't have a trade fixture question personally. Not that I have anything to do with the exam. But a trade fixture, again, personal property for the course of doing business. So I maybe lease a space to open a restaurant. And maybe because of COVID-19, I want to make sure that no one just moves tables around however they want, so I can still socially distance. So I decide to screw them into the ground. That act in a home might now make that table a fixture, okay? But we're not talking about residential property. We're talking about something for the course of doing business, okay? So even though I screwed those down, it's a trade fixture, which means when the lease is up, I'm going to be free to take those with me when I go. Okay, got a good example here for you. This is a tricky one, but here's how I understand it. A balance beam in a home gym. Does it stay or does it go? Because you know that balance beam is probably rock solid, mounted into the floor so that it doesn't tip over. Does it stay or does it go? Well, it is there for the intention of being a home gym, so it stays. But what if that home gym was at Chow's Gym, where the famous Iowan Shawn Johnson trained before she won her gold medal? Then it would be a trade fixture because Chow's has it there just for the course of doing business. So it is a trade fixture. Okay. So again, a trade fixture is for the purpose of doing business. If you see anything that has to do with a house in the trade question or a house in the test question, that should alarm you that something doesn't match up. Okay, because it's not residential, it's for the course of doing business. It's personal property. Another quick term for you here is real property. So this is real estate on steroids. Okay, real property means that you not only have ownership rights, but you have this bundle of rights that goes with it. You've got the right to possess your property. You've got the right to legally control it. You want to paint your house retina burning orange and it's legal to do in your city, you do it. It's yours. You've got the right to enjoy it. Use the property as you wish. You've got the right to exclusion, which means no trespassing. And here's where you come in as getting a real estate license. You've got the right to dispose of it, which means you can will it, gift it, or sell it to another person. Okay. Now, for your career, I don't hear agents ever using the term real property. Okay. We call everything real estate. But real property is this, again, kind of steroids of this bundle of things that you get, not just the cabinets and the carpet and the structure and the trees, but the right to possess it, control it, and enjoy it as long as it's legal. You got the right to have it be your own to the exclusion of no one else. And you've got the right to will it, sell it, or gift it to another individual or party. Okay, hope this was a helpful review of real estate and real property.